Welcome and Vaheguru Ji Ka Khalsa, Vaheguru Ji Ki Fateh. Respected NTK leadership, our friends from Tamil Nadu, Nagaland, and Sister Patal Kanya from Tripura. First of all, I pay my heartiest tribute to Tamil nationalist warrior Thiru Shankar Lingnar, who laid his life for Tamil national cause. I want to take this opportunity to recall Shaheed Darshan Singh Feruman, who was Shankar Lingnar of Punjabi people, who fasted until death for 74 days and finally attained martyrdom on 27th of October 1969, demanding Punjab's political rights. The experience of various nationalities and struggling people in this peninsula, which is called India, shows that the Indian state or the Delhi Darbar does not pay attention to plight of these people and refuses to respect their aspirations, especially their political aspirations. This is a common problem that we all have been facing since 1947 transfer of power. Many nationalities have strongly resisted India's denial for their political rights. Many lives have been laid to find a solution, but the solution is nowhere in sight. Initially, there were some issues, then issues turned into problems, then problems turned into crisis, and now we all are facing very severe crisis pertaining to our political rights and our identity. So the things have gone complex. We need to understand that why this is happening, why the issues are not being addressed, why are the issues being allowed to turn into crisis, and why it is turning worse and worse. Therefore, we need to find a rationale for Delhi Darbar's denial to respect and accept aspirations of different nationalities of this region. Now I shall share our understanding about Delhi Darbar, or the New Delhi based seat of power, that is the Indian state. Delhi Takht is defined by a blended mix of influences made up of predominantly four layers: imperialist political structure, nationalism and nation state building, Vipar Sanskar or Hindutva, which is a caste-based discriminatory social structure, and capitalism. British rule over this region may have ended in 1947, but the imperialist structure of domination, that is the Indian state, is still continuing on the same track to this day. The exploitation of natural resources, treatment of people as resources continues till today. This psyche is inherent to the very nature of India as a colonial project. So basically, we are facing a new kind of colonialism presently in India. The decisive power over the state structure remains in the hand of a few upper caste elite, while the desires and aspirations of diverse racial, social, political, cultural, religious and linguistic communities are being repressed by state violence. When we talk about nationalism and nation-state building in this peninsula, it becomes clear that in order to shackle the countless racial, cultural, national, historical, linguistic groups and historical polities, and to keep them subordinate to one centralized political structure, The nation building project was predominantly interwoven with the imperatives of state building after 1947. To achieve this vision, all the state's institutions, including education system, cinema, television, and mechanisms of communication of culture were deployed in the state's nation building project in order to assimilate diverse peoples into one artificially constructed Indian nation. Even today, the state does not govern with the consent of people or the input of citizens, but instead imposes its policies on masses with brute force. We can take example of what happened in Kashmir. We can take example of recent farm laws that are being imposed on people without their consent. They were not even consulted when those laws were being formed. People are opposing, still the government is enforcing. Then comes Bipar Sanskar or the Hindutva, which is third layer or third character of Indian state system, which is a caste-based social discriminatory system. As a result of Hindutva being at the foundation of ruling core, the hierarchical and discriminatory system of Hindutva are embedded in the structure of state and society. All people impacted by caste apartheid and economic deprivation are still struggling for their dignity, be it social, political, or economic equality. The elite so-called upper castes have tightened their grip over Delhi Darbar in recent years. As a result, they are pushing their chauvinistic project even more aggressively than before. We know things have changed since election of 2014. The speed of everything has multiplied. This supremacist psyche is at the root of their desire to become global superpower, and its aggressive tone is sharply intensifying day by day. In this regard, this elite propagates the mystic self-perception of itself as the guru of the world. The deteriorating relation of India with its neighbors is also a result of this supremacist mindset, and its approach to those nations shackled within its borders is no different. Delhi Takht does not view these people as its own or as partners, but as enemies that are yet to be fully conquered. Those who advocate, we call it Sanjivalta, it is basically equality, fraternity, and peaceful coexistence. So those who advocate equality, fraternity, and peaceful coexistence in the region have been increasingly marginalized. The last layer of Delhi Takht is its capitalist economic structure, which in the past 3 decades has rapidly intensified the rate of concentration of as much capital as possible in the hands of a few major industrialists and corporations. Along these lines, successive Indian governments have conspired with the domestic and foreign capitalists to blindly exploit natural resources and people of the subcontinent. Before the current corporate capitalist model was imposed, the Indian economic system purported to adopt a socialist economic model, which in reality was just a state capitalism. In order to force diverse and multinational subcontinent into a homogenized nation state, it was necessary that all economic powers remain highly centralized in the hands of Delhi Darbar as a pivotal tool of social and political engineering. We know states don't have enough rights, especially the economic rights, to carry forward their agendas or carry forward their things that could be helpful for them in protecting their culture. So basically, Indian states' unitary practices have been continuing since 1947, and many resistance movements have struggled against it. In order to build a meaningful, just and social relation among the peoples of different regions, it is imperative to yield political power for the purpose of welfare of all, to which we call Sarbat da Pala. We all are ailed by same disease, that is the centralization of power in the hands of few people under Delhi Darbar system. We are experiencing same ill effects too. That's why our coordination is important. There are different visions about the prospective solution, and of course, federalism is one such vision. India says that it is a federation. Indian government says that there is federal structure in India, but that is nothing more than a deceitful tactic. The centralizing grip of Indian state is turning totalitarian. Even when we talk about federalism in this peninsula, we encounter an issue that not all states are demanding autonomy or the real sense federal structure. Actually, this region is so diverse that no single solution can address concerns of all, as there cannot be a single medicine for all ailments. This is a very diverse region. People have different aspirations, they have different perspective, they have different plans about their future, their vision is different. So solutions has to be different for different regions. Even federalism has different shades. The issue is that not all states asking for federal structure, this issue can be addressed by having a asymmetric federal structure, where different arrangements can be made for different nationalities, communities or regions according to the wishes of those people. We must remember that even if we may have different visions about solution, we have a common cause, and that is to loosen and ultimately break the clutches of centralization of power. Once that death grip is broken, people of different regions can decide about their future and the kind of political arrangement which may be suitable for them. So lastly, I would like to extend my thanks to the organizers for taking this initiative. And as Paramjit Singh Mand has said, we would like to see representatives of NTK and of course other nationalities who are present here to be in Punjab and join us on 10th of December. And through these discussions, we can develop a common understanding that what could be done. And I wish all the best to all present here. Thank you very much. Meeka Nandri.